with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so very, very happy that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Himalaya, Ghana, wherever you find your podcasts. And please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Spread the word to everybody you know and love. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Mickey on the Move, a great series of books from Michelle Wagner. We really love these books. You're going to love Mickey, the main character in both books, Mickey on the Move and Mickey on the Move Farming. And these big-hearted books, you're going to learn the real story of a young boy who's deaf, who is aided by his mom and his teachers in navigating new school and farm experiences. Mickey is just like everyone else, except he wears cochlear implants and has to do things just a little differently than most kids. This charming tale reminds us that we can all find happiness if we lean on and support each other. You're really going to love these books. I love these books. It's a great way to remind kids that kids who are different and kids who may have a disability or a learning challenge, they can be great friends. Check it out today. Mickey on the Move and Mickey on the Move Farming, two great books from Michelle Wagner. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by A is for Always, an adoption alphabet, written by Linda Cutting. Linda tells us that this book is inspired by her daughter, a Chinese-American girl adopted into an all-white family when she was only 6. She stomped down the hall carrying 2 books, demanding to know why her adoption book was different from her white brothers. Linda says her daughter asked her to write a book for adoptees from everywhere so no one would feel left out. A book that addressed the challenges as well as the joys of adoption. You and your kids are going to love this beautiful book. It's a beautiful message, and the illustrations are absolutely beautiful. Every page shows a different adopted family of cuddly animals welcoming and cherishing a new child. A is for Always. It hit number 1 on Amazon for new releases. It should be in your family library. Get your copy today. A is for Always, an adoption alphabet by Linda Cutting. Join us right now from the great state of California. Our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful bilingual picture book. It's called Little Curiosity, Curiosita. Please welcome to the show, Fatima Pimienta. Hey, Fatima, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm delighted to have you on. The book arrived last week, and it's quite lovely, quite delightful.
Tell me your experience with it.
Well, my beautiful wife is originally from Puerto Rico. We sat down, and she definitely loves the fact that it is bilingual and that a family can choose, many different ways to experience the book. Maybe once in English, once in Spanish. Maybe the kid can read it in one language, the parent can read it in the other language. Just, one page in English, one page in Spanish. Just a lot of fun.
It is. I mentioned this earlier. I dedicated the book to my niece Cordelia, and I don't know if you've met a 4-year-old, but they are quite bossy. So whenever we read the book, it's her on my lap, and I usually my mom next to me, and she will go, now you. And okay, so if she points to me, I read the page in English, and she points to my mom, now you. Then she reads it in Spanish. So we usually end up reading each line first in English and then in Spanish, and then first in Spanish and then in English. And I kind of love seeing her like orchestrate it and just relish in the experience of the book, which is really, really cute. Then, oh God, I told you about this earlier. My 9-year-old nephew from like my cousin's kid will come by and be like, well, I can read both by myself. And it's like, okay, sure.
And that's really wonderful. I love that. I have met a 4-year-old. I've met many 4-year-olds. I've raised a couple of kids who were 4. I don't know. My daughter, though, not quite sure she was 4. She we snuck her into a dance class at 2.5. She was supposed to be 4. She just had a lot of energy. We had to get her to do something. So Alejandra went in and started dancing with 4 and 5-year-olds when she was 2.5. So I think she may have skipped 4, but I get it. And it sounds like a lot of fun. I love the fact that your nephew was really proud of the fact that he is able to read in both languages. And that is something that I really wish more people here in the United States would embrace, the idea of being able to speak more than one language, like most of the rest of the world are able to do.
That is something that is very, very curious to me. So we were talking earlier before you clicked the record button of where I grew up. So I grew up in a very hot, very below sea level place called the Imperial Valley. And the Mexican side of the border is called Mexicali, and the American side of the border is called Cal, Mexico. Mexi, Cali, Cal, Mexico. It's why I'm so good at puns. I was raised there. And so it's a very rich culture in so many ways. But one thing that I didn't know was abnormal growing up was that everyone I knew was bilingual. And everyone I knew had pesos and dollars in their pockets. Everyone I knew had a passport. Everyone I knew was like, oh, we need to stop by the immigration office to pick up a visa. It was just part of my world. And I think I was like 9 when my dad's friend visited from Mexico City and had a lovely daughter, and we wanted to sit down and watch a movie, and just popped in like a Disney VHS, and she looks a little bit sad. She goes, oh, I don't speak English. And I swear I wasn't trying to be rude. I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck. I just go, what, don't you go to school? And it was just my mom's like, no, like you do understand that we're not the norm, kid. Like growing up in a place where you wake up in Mexico, cross the border, go to school in the US, cross the border, have lunch with your parents, cross the border, go to the football game. That's not most of the world. You're in a very culturally specific place. And I'm like, oh, wow. And so, I've never had the identity of being a Mexican American. If anything, I feel like an American Mexican. Mm-hmm. I've never had the experience of immigrating. My family was just always here. My grandfather was from the Yaqui Indigenous American tribe when it was Mexico. My Spaniard side of the family was here since the Conquista. So we've never kind of had to come into the U.S. We've always just had both. And so that is something that I wanted to bring into this book, that it's not an either or, it's not a partial, it's not half. It's full, like the story can be enjoyed fully in English, fully in Spanish, both at the same time, trade as you go, have fun with it. It's just wanted to make that dynamic come alive.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important because it's such you mentioning you don't feel like you're Mexican American. One of the talk shows that I used to love, I was a weird kid, like way back when the TV went off at 11 o'clock at night. When I was in grade school, I would sneak the little transistor radio. They were these little square things, and you had an antenna.
Oh yeah, with the antenna, twice your height.
Yep. And I would have that underneath my pillow at night, and I would listen to a talk show host here in Boston. His name was Larry Glick. And everybody who called up who said, Larry, I'm Italian American, Larry, I'm Irish American, he would always stop them and correct them and say, no. You are an American of Irish descent, of Italian descent, and really kind of wanted to stress that idea that we're all here. We're brothers and sisters in this country. And I would love, as you know, I've done a lot of traveling in Central America. I'm going back there at the end of October for 3 weeks. I would really love if we could embrace just the idea that we're all Americans, North America, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America. We're all part of this part of the world, and it would be wonderful if we could see each other as part of the same beautiful family.
I completely agree. One thing that I love, so one of my hobbies here in San Diego is I love going to a good dance class, whether it be a bachata class, whether it be a Zumba class or a salsa dancing. I just love moving. And there's like this umbrella understanding of we're all Latine. We're all of Hispanic and indigenous blood. We have a lot of similarities in our culture. Let's just celebrate. Let's just dance. Let's just enjoy the loudness of our cultures. And it's very funny that as soon as I lived in Chile for a year, and yeah, there is that universal understanding of Latino America and the unity of it. But as soon as football comes into the picture, oh, no. Everyone's out for themselves. Just so long as you don't bring the World Cup into it, everything's great.
Yeah. You know, I'm taking a risk here, but you brought it up and you said the loudness of Latin culture, and my beautiful wife often gets frustrated with me because I will offer an opinion and she'll take it, but she's in the other side of the house talking on the phone to her friend, and I'm able to offer an opinion because I can hear the entire conversation. And after she shares the opinion with her friend and they agree that it's a great idea and they want to go forward with it, it's always followed with, how do you know that? How are you listening to my conversation?
Okay, that might be more of a generational thing, and I think it's a technological thing. Like one thing that, I'm sorry, Mom, I don't mean to throw you under the bus. Te quiero. No te enojes, is whenever she calls me on the phone, she still speaks as if she's speaking into a phone from the 70s. When you had to enunciate very clearly, and when you had to be sure about what you were saying, I'm like, no, your daughter's a millennial. We grew up with interface. Like, we can hear her whisper. It's fine. But that generational thing of technology and loudness and enunciating, it's, oh God, and my lovely grandmother, who is 2 generations above a baby boomer, just none whatsoever. It sounds like she's still trying to speak into a phonograph. I love her, but I think that is something about habits. And we've seen a lot of really, really interesting studies of even how we take pictures, how millennials take pictures versus how Gen Z is now taking pictures versus how baby boomers post for pictures. And it's really, really fascinating to see how each generation has interacted with technology and what becomes of it. And so I wouldn't say that loudness is necessarily a Latina thing, but it's a possibility.
I'm, like I said, I knew I was taking a risk, but you brought it up, so I thought I would share that experience with my beautiful wife.
No, there are shy and introverted Latino people. They exist.
Yes, I have met them. You know, we were talking about kids being bilingual or trilingual or even beyond trilingual. My beautiful wife, in fact, it was one of the friends that she was speaking to on the phone the last time this happened, who had been a principal in a public school here in Boston. And she's originally from Colombia, so she was working in an area of Boston that had lots of kids from South and Central America. I would say probably 70 to 80%. And one of the things that this principal wanted to do is to just introduce more classes in Spanish and to have a more bilingual atmosphere, like I guess officially, because it was already happening. And so she would send home official letters in English and Spanish and offer more Spanish classes to the English-speaking kids. And a lot of the English-speaking families were very upset. There was nobody putting a gun to anybody's head saying, you have to speak Spanish or else. It was just, hey, this is something that can really benefit your kids. And that attitude, it just is beyond me. I struggle learning languages. I've been married to my beautiful wife for 33 years, and I am far from fluent, other than the bad words. I know lots of the bad words in Spanish, but
We'll get you into Duolingo. Don't you worry.
okay. But
that's what I was talking about with, I do not remember who, but it was a prior conversation of how inclusion does not always mean exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So we were specifically talking about the idea of having a homecoming court or a prom court to be able to welcome anyone. And if you have two queens, great. If you have two lieges or royals, great. If you have two kings, great. If you have a king and a queen, great. If you have a royal and a queen, it's about being inclusive. And that comes with the mentality of, oh, well, we're losing something. I struggle with the idea because Spanglish is very much a big part of a lot of the Chicano culture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that my family doesn't do it. We do, especially with figures of speech, especially with expressions, or how do you say that one thing? Oh, there's no translation for it. You just go with it. And there is that sense of loss or, oh, you're replacing, or this is going to be instead of that. And so it's very curious to me that I don't think anyone loses the experience of the book reading it only in English. I don't think you're missing out on anything. I'm not forcing you to learn Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to, give it a go. Oh, look, you have a little reference guide of what each sentence means. You're doing great.
Yeah.
It's fine. But I think there is that innate fear of change or loss. And all I can say is, well, I'm sure there's still some black and white ends of the rainbow. There is the absence of light. There is the pure light. You don't lose the black and the white by adding color or gray. You're doing great.
Yeah. You know, one of the things about your book is that it certainly is, I think it appeals to lots of ages. And I think it's a book that you could sit down and read with a very young kid. Like you were mentioning, your 4-year-old niece kind of orchestrates the readings with you and your mom. I think kids pick up on it, but I think certainly my kids grew up understanding that there was more than one way to say something, and there are a couple of different languages. But I think that there are other kids who aren't exposed to folks who speak different languages. And this would be a really fun, neat, safe way to just help them understand that, you know, there's lots of different ways to express yourself. And there are people all over the world who feel the same way you do and can be our friends, but they just speak and they use different words to say how they're feeling. And wouldn't it be neat to be able to understand those different words? And I think that age 3 or 4 is a great time to start presenting that idea to kids.
Exactly. Like, just because we're introducing the idea of pozole and menudo doesn't mean that we're losing out on a good tomato and grilled cheese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have the both.
Yeah.
I did that very, very much on purpose, and I'm so glad that it's reading through. I did not want to dilute either experience and hope that one enriched the other.
Yeah.
Even if it was just in the safe, encouraging, give it a go.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that's what America is supposed to be all about. The fact that we have all these folks coming from different parts of the world, hopefully adding and making our nation and our lives better.
Oh God, I think I was in high school when one philosophy professor goes, America is not a melting pot. It is a salad bar. And that stuck with me. I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, I'm sorry, I'm from Southern California. We have the sushi, the California sushi Rito, which is not sushi. The California roll is not sushi. It is delicious. And it's not a burrito, but it's still fantastic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that kind of really came to my life when we've hosted international kids here in our home, kids from China and Italy and India and the Netherlands, and we had an experience one year when one of the students that was from Italy came out on tour with my beautiful daughter and I, and we were in the van traveling around the country for three weeks. And first off, the student was blown away by how big the country was. And, as we're driving from Boston down to Atlanta to Mobile, Alabama, she's like, we're back in Italy. We already went through like 7 or 8 countries.
Oh, yeah.
But even within our nation, we have a very diverse nation. There are many different cultures. New England culture is very different than Southern California culture and is different than Florida culture. And I don't think that I think we're aware of that, but I don't think we really appreciate the fact that there are different cultures here.
Absolutely. And then I've had completely different experiences in the South. I had a very different experience in Savannah, Georgia than I did in Charlotte, than I did in Nashville. Mm-hmm. There's truly no such thing as a single American experience. Mm-hmm. There's a plethora. And the experience that a American Mexican like myself will have is very different than someone who is a first or second generation Mexican American, mm-hmm. or even someone who is, I have no idea, of Irish and Scottish and English descent in my same city. They could live a block away from me and we have completely different experiences. Mm-hmm. So throw that in there with the battle for the best barbecue of the nation, and you will have Kentucky versus Louisiana. It's a lot of fun. Like, food is great in this country. There's so much diversity.
Yeah. And it should be fun. It really should be fun. Just like a little curiosity, Curiosita is.
Cover all colors of the American food palette.
Yeah. So what's next for you now that this book is out in the world? Are we working on another book?
I'm not entirely sure. So this is my first butterfly. I had no idea how much work goes into post-production, just marketing and reaching out to independent bookstores and finding my own interviews or creating author book signings, speaking with schools and having potentially assemblies or coming into classrooms. I've been reaching out to a lot of drag queen story times and seeing who's available at the San Diego Public Libraries. I went on Instagram and posted 3 different little free libraries, and just the promotion and the marketing and the getting it moving out there. And yes, it exists, but now I need to share it. And mm-hmm. that includes being very public and constantly being on the move and getting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really happy because we have a lot of authors and aspiring authors who listen to the show. And one of the things we like to remind those authors, especially the independent authors or self-published authors, and even the traditionally published authors, when you write a book, you have made yourself the CEO of a small business, and that small business is your book. And I know we like to think of ourselves as artists and creatives and, the business world is beneath me, but
it's a job.
It's a job.
You have to do the math of how many hard copies do I want for each book signing? Am I going to be lugging around 50 copies of this book, or am I not going to have enough? And if I don't have enough, do I want to print out flyers? Do I want to have a QR code? What do you want to do in case you don't have hard copies with you, or in order to boost more sales? I'm learning so much about marketing and so much math.
Yeah.
So much math. It's a real thing.
Well, we need to learn where we can go to find out more about this great little book, Little Curiosity, Curiosita.
It can be found on Amazon.com. It can be found on BarnesandNoble.com, bookshop.org, and booksamillion.com. That's what I'm correcting. It's a lot of my father's friends in Mexico, like Mexico City, Monterrey, Guadalajara, they were struggling with Amazon because it's not available in Amazon Mexico. Uh-huh. So I'd be like, let's try BarnesandNoble.com, try bookshop.org, try Books a Million. And if anything, send me your money and I will send you a copy. It'll be great.
That sounds good. And is there a way to find you on social media?
Right now I have a social media account for the book itself. It is littlecuriosity.curiosita on Instagram. And yeah, I'm always active on there. Feel free to DM me any questions, any thoughts that you have on the book. Whether you think Curiosita should go on her own next adventures and discover some new friends, some danger. I've been toying around with the idea of 2 other books, one about monkeys and another about birds. And I still haven't really reconciled how I would like to go about that, but we shall see.
Well, we are really excited to find out whatever happens. And we also love supporting our independent bookshop. So if you go to your indie bookshop and say, hey, do you have Little Curiosity by Fatima Pimienta? I bet you they can find it and have it there in just a day or 2.
I have an IDSN number, and in San Diego, these are not all the independent bookstores, but these are 3 of my favorites. I love Warwick's in La Jolla, so shout out to Warwick's. I love Verbatim Books. They are a phenomenal new and used bookstore. They're absolutely lovely. And third, Nibelula, which is also it means firefly in Spanish. They're also very big on diversity and local independent authors. And so those are 3 of the places that I will be visiting around San Diego. So stay tuned.
Awesome.
Maybe you can pop me on those shelves.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Little Curiosity, Curiosita. Our guest has been Fatima Pimienta. Hey, Fatima, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure, guys. Really appreciate your time today. It's a joy to be on here.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. We are so grateful that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. If you are on LinkedIn, please connect with Jed Doherty. We also have a Reading with Your Kids page on LinkedIn. We would love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Authors, click on the Authors Click Here button to find out how you can be a guest here in the show and find out how we can help you celebrate your book with the world. And also, parents, please be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com to download our free online magazine. Hey, we want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our amazing guest. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Ann O'Leary, Soji Franklin. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.